The Iranians have been trying to develop a regional hegemony. The Russians have now become their ally. I think what you're seeing is a tremendous shift of power away from the United States and Western Europe towards Russia and Iran. And it's a strategic defeat, a very dramatic defeat in historical terms.
Wow, Newt Gingrich with Greta there on the shifting world powers. President Obama, Vladimir Putin had a photo op, and this was the extent of that photo op. They walked in the room, paused, shook hands, and walked out. John Bolton, former U.S. ambassador to the UN, also a Fox News contributor, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Sir, good day to you. I know you're in a place that you love, at the United Nations. Now, what's going to happen here? Donald Trump is saying, go ahead. If Vladimir Putin can defeat ISIS, go for it. There's a New York Times quote earlier today from an official of the Obama administration, knock yourselves out. Can Vladimir Putin succeed where this administration has not?
Well, I think Putin's strategy here is really fixed more on replacing the United States as the dominant power in the Middle East than going to war with ISIS. I think he's got a number of objectives he's working at the same time. First and foremost, reinforcing the Assad regime, which has depended on Russia and Iran for its survival. But perhaps even more importantly in the short term, saying to Europe, look, if we can get together on dealing with ISIS, we can help stop your refugee problem. And, oh, by the way, why don't you lift those economic sanctions you imposed on Russia because of what we're doing in Ukraine? So, in a way, he's playing on what he sees as a potential split between Europe and the United States. And from early returns after the speeches yesterday, I think he may be making progress.
President Obama said, let's get together as a world, with a direct appeal to the international community. Vladimir Putin followed him and said, listen, I'm going to support Assad. If every country in this world is after their own interest, who wins that debate ultimately?
Well, Putin does, because everybody is after their own interest except Barack Obama. You know, it's a very pleasant thought that the world can come together and everybody will applaud it, and then nobody will do anything about it. And I think that's why Putin's approach here is much more likely to succeed. I think it's detrimental to American interests, but if our president isn't advancing our interests, protecting our friends, and trying to do what presidents normally do, it's no wonder that our adversaries see weakness, lack of attention, and they're going to try and take advantage of it. I think that's exactly what Putin and the alliance he's putting together in the Middle East are doing.
So look down the road. If he is able to succeed, what's the effect of that?
Well, I think in the short term, if he can bolster the Assad regime, help consolidate Iran's control over the Baghdad government of what's left of Iraq, I think then they could actually work out an agreement with ISIS, kind of a mutual non-aggression pact where they go after their other interests. I think Putin's designs here on the Middle East are much broader. I think that's reflected in his trip earlier this year to Egypt, the first Russian weapons sales to Egypt since the 1970s. I think he sees a chance to get into a region the Russians have long wanted to dominate as the United States, under Barack Obama at least, retreats.
Some have questioned whether or not Russia has the money to do this. We shall see on that. President Obama said this yesterday about Iran, this on the heels of a nuclear agreement. Watch.
The Iranian people have a proud history and are filled with extraordinary potential. But chanting death to America does not create jobs or make Iran more secure.
What did you think of that comment?
Well, I think it's inane, frankly. The Iranians themselves are pursuing a strategy of regional hegemony. They're not interested in the consumer society the same way Americans like Barack Obama are. And I think that's something that Putin shares. You know, when you talk about Russia not having the resources, obviously the reduction in international petroleum prices have had an effect. But his adventurism in Ukraine and Syria today are not big budget items. What he's he's facing is a vacuum of power created by the decline of interest of the United States in the region as a whole. So what both of these people are doing is playing a much longer game than worrying about the current state of their economy. And as long as they're on the move and we're in retreat, I think it will redound to their advantage.
Well, there's a meeting today with Raul Castro. How's that going to go? President Obama and the Cuban president?
Well, I'm just hoping that the president doesn't give away the Guantanamo naval base. I really think that's on his agenda before his term as president is over. Not just closing the prisoner facility, but giving back our leasehold on that facility. That's been an objective of the left in America for a long time. I'm very worried. I think Congress needs to move more actively to prevent that from happening. And I hope we'll see, perhaps after this meeting, that Congress will wake up to the risk we face here.
John Bolton, thank you. We'll talk to you a bit later today. A lot of action again in the building behind you. Thank you, sir, for being here today.
Thank you, Bill.
All right.